Hello, everyone. Good morning. You're bright and breezy. Look, one of the first things that I always do is I always like to know who my audience is. I'm used to working with much smaller groups, very intimately, for maybe 12, 15 people over a couple of days. So can we build up a little bit of atmosphere? As I'm going through, I've got some slides, which obviously I've put together particularly for today, but I look at slides as a framework for a discussion, because what I find is it's the war stories, it's the tips that everybody in the room has got that actually brings it alive. So the deal is, you're going to get engaged. Yep? Okay, we won't jump up and down I don't want you to hold hands or hug trees, but just to get moving. Can I also just find out, who is in the first year of starting a business? Anybody in their first year?
Second would feels like the first year.
Okay. Anybody within the 1 to 5 range? 1 to 5 years? 5 to 10 years? 10 to 15? 15 to 20? Wow, okay. I always get amazed by the answers to that. Second thing is, how many employees have you got? Up to 10 people? Up to 20? 30? 50? 100? 200? 200? How many?
About 170 something.
Okay, that was pretty precise. When you left this morning, yeah. 170. Again, I'm amazed. So we've got some really interesting, businesses here already, just on those two criteria. Turnover, up to 5 million. Up between 5 and 10 million. Chunky. Mr. Chunky. I say that in the nicest way. Up to 15 million. 20 million. In excess of 20. Okay, so already in the room I'm beginning to see that we've got quite a range with lots of people who've got lots of experience to bring. So all the difficult questions will go to the people who said that they've been in business for a long time. Is that the deal? Okay. One of the things I know, you've got to spot me on you. You can send questions to me if you want to. I've got a dash up there in a minute. As we go through here, and I can have a look at them, and if they're too difficult, I'll give it to the person who said he's been in business for 20 years or whatever, and if I feel I can answer them, I will answer them. Just a bit of background on myself, but you are the stars today. I've been in business with 4 businesses. 2 have been successful, and 2, if you want me to talk about them, 2 that weren't so. The 2 that were successful were in professional services, and the 2 that weren't were in completely unrelated areas. And I learnt that rule of life, which is moving out of your specialist area, beware, because there are lots of things that you need to pick up and to understand. So I've run, so we started businesses in the back bedroom or in the lounge. I run companies with credit cards for a few months because we were at loggerheads with the bank. My poor wife, yes, I do have a wife, and she stayed with me through all of this, came down on 3 occasions to put our house on the line. So when we're talking about this subject, which is about people, I'm coming into it from scars on the back, things that I've picked up on the way, and I've been so lucky in my life. I've worked with some amazing people, in particular one of them called Robin Stewart Coetzee, and when I talk about research findings about behaviours and the link between behaviours and what makes for best performance, I'm going to use his stuff. If any of you are interested, we wrote a book together. We collaborated over the last 5 years, and we released a book in 2008, which is called, spookily, Who Are Your Best People? And I will pull on that. That's the last commercial, by the way. But it's stuff that I believe in. I'm absolutely passionate about this stuff. My love affair with trying to understand people started way back. I was one of 5 boys. Mum was just lucky, as we used to say. And I think I was an observationist from the time that I was walking around in nappies. So I've tried to keep that in all of the work that I've done. Right, are you ready for some slides? Okay. Okay, so what I thought would be interesting today would just be to look at defining talent and best at the same time, covering some of those topics which come about sometimes in questions. You know, can we spot talent, and if we can, what can we do about it, and you know, can we predict talent as well, because and potential. And also I've got some stuff which I thought would be helpful for you is let's move the focus away from individuals and let's look at what we can do running our own businesses to encourage the best. What are the tips? What are the secrets? What seems to make for a best culture? And I end with a few practical tips. Probably going to work on this for about 20 to 30 minutes formal. If it hasn't already come across, I'm a bit of a floor walker. I don't like being at podiums. I don't like barriers. And I much prefer the cut and thrust of questions, because I honestly think that's the way that we learn. But I thought that this stuff would be helpful for you. Okay, question. We know already that there are so many different types of businesses in this room. Can I just do a quick sort of buzz group with you, which is when you think of your business and you think of best people, the people who really impress you in your particular business, which is your market, your situation, what are the things that really strike you? What defines best for you? Can you say it louder? Motivation. So you like to see people motivated. How do you know that they're motivated?
They can show it in their behaviour.
They express it through their behaviour. Okay. So what I call up for it. Okay. Anybody else from the floor? People in your business that really impress you and you'd say that's best. Passion. Passion. And what does that look like?
Well,
Watch how you say this.
with our industry,
Yep.
it's a passion for what we do.
Yeah.
So they've probably got personal history along the same lines as what we do.
Fine.
So,
Yeah.
they come to work for us because of what we do.
Simpatico. So there's a link between your brand
Yeah.
and that passion, and that comes across in everything that you do.
Yeah.
So you select on that basis?
No. But they normally come across better at interviews. So.
It's got to be part of it. We'll come back on that in a minute. It's got to be part of the selection process. A couple more, just before I move on.
I think being proactive and coming up with generating ideas
Yep.
from themselves, thinking of new ways to do things and not being sort of blinkered and stuck in a rut.
Yeah. There was a book. I will keep on doing this all the way through here. Not that I'm academic, but I read a hell of a lot. And there was a book called "So We're All Self-Employed, Really," and it starts with a legend. The most important thing in your whole life is to understand that you don't work for anybody else. Check. And it's not an anti-corporate thing or an anti-business thing, or it's not an anti-team thing. It's just a fact that actually that pride should be there in your own personal performance because it's you. It's part of you. And looking for that in people, I think is very important. In my business, I used to look for people who had what I call unfinished business. Maybe had stumbled a bit, and there was something driving them, and you can actually put people in different situations. You can frame interview questions, and you can actually pull out some of those. One more thing before I move on.
I think it's following on from what we're saying, so being flexible and adaptable and being open to changing how we work.
Adaptability. Darwin said it best when he was talking about the dinosaurs and all of that stuff. He said it wasn't the strongest and the biggest that survived. Who are the ones that survived? The most adaptable and flexible. Yeah? So adaptability and flexibility. So best, interestingly enough in the room, spookily, nobody said because they're really intelligent. Nobody said because they've got these great qualifications. Nobody said in the room, all of that stuff. Now, that stuff is really important, but what I'm talking about is if 10 people are coming towards you, and they've all got relatively the same CVs from a business background, qualifications and whatever, in whatever line of country you're in, these are the things that define best. It's that softer stuff. It's what people do. Follow their feet. Don't follow what they say. So getting that level of connectivity. So when Robin and I were writing the book, Who Are Your Best People, we started with bouncing around ideas about talent, and we came up with this definition of talent, which we think is best. Best and talent looks like this. It's the ability to do something very well, but also it's the willingness and desire to do something better for the future. So best people have that built-in desire. And when you're interviewing people, if you're interviewing and it feels a bit 2D, it feels a bit flat, you must think, you know, I've got to put a hell of a lot of effort into you in order to make it worthwhile. Now, I'm not saying that some people you shouldn't do that with, but be sparing on it. In our company, we used to have a phrase which was consume your own smoke. We wanted people who were absolutely up for it, wanted people who could hit the ground running. We would, if the basics were there, we would pump an enormous amount of investment into them, but will and motivation is prime. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah? And there's an old phrase in search. A mate of mine runs a search business, and he said to me ages ago, it's all these one-liners, I love one-liners. He said, Chris, very often you're hired for what you know, but you're fired for who you are. If you hire a pain in the arse, they're a pain in the arse. They might be bright, but they're a pain in the arse. I'm full of these little profound statements. Okay. The truth is that best is all about behavior. Behavior is what drives performance. And best people balance their behavior with the requirements of the job. This is the research that we've done. So this is what best looks like. This is all about behaviors. So as I said before, don't watch what people say, watch what they do. This is 40 years worth of work, so it's quite an expensive slide. When Robin and I were working and we were talking about everything he'd found out about, he's 70-odd now. He's a global guru in behaviour, travels the world and talks to lots of businesses and has turned around businesses using these techniques. He came to a very simple thing, is that best people use the right behaviour at the right time. So if you've got the behaviour for the job here and the behaviour of the person there, you have low performance. So that's like that. If you bridge it in the middle, you have medium performance. Best performance is like an eclipse. The person actually behaves as you want them to in the job. And one of the most amazing things that I got to chapter 3 on this book, and I suddenly worked out what this clever guy had actually done. Imagine the Olympic Games, and there is a gymnastic person doing whatever they do, treble salcho's or whatever. I don't know enough about gymnastics, but they're there on the carpet. And alongside, a bit like Strictly Come Dancing, are the 4 judges. And at the end of it, the person's done their gymnastics, and they all look at the judges, and the judges go 5.9, 5.6, 5.3. They do that because the judge knows what they're looking for. So they judge the gymnastic against the various movements that they know. All that he has done through his research is to say, if we ain't clear on what behaviours we want this particular person to adopt and be like, don't be surprised if we can't hit the 6, if 6 is top. 5.9, 5.8, 5.7 is probably as good as you can get. Ergo, if we don't know what behaviours are required for the job, we don't know what 6 looks like. We don't know what top marks looks like. In your companies, do you spend enough time on behaviours? Do you talk about behaviours? Check? Yep. Do you do behaviour specifications? So you do a job spec, okay? Do you do a behaviour spec? No. Interesting. We are great as a nation, it seems to me, of doing the what, the accountabilities and the KPIs and the targets. But if everything I've said before actually is about that behaviour drives performance, shouldn't we balance that up with more emphasis on behaviours? And I've reached that point. I'm 60-odd now. I've been doing this type of work for 30-odd years. And I keep on thinking to myself, I don't believe people go to work deliberately to set about buggering things up. Technical term. All the research indicates that 95%... Sorry, I'm moving about. 95% of low performance is due to two things. Lack of clarity or lack of understanding by individuals about what it is that they're meant to be doing. 40 years worth of research, bang, gone. It's amazing, isn't it? When you think about it, we take an awful lot of things for granted. An old boss of mine taught me, I've been very lucky because I've had some great bosses. And one of them taught me a little delegation model, ABC. He said, Chris, A things are things that, if you and I are working together, A things are things, I trust you, go and get on with them. Apart from maybe once a year, I expect you to get on with them. They're in your competence, and I trust you. B things are things that we need to talk through. You go away and do them, and then come back to me. C things are fascinating. What do you think C things are? We've got to do them together, because essentially they're behaviour-based. And if I give you an example, when I was about 25, 26, I was being trained up to take over from my boss as regional personnel manager, and we had a union. So I had to learn about unions. Now, I can learn a lot about books, but actually playing it out live with a relatively stroppy shop steward supported by a group of guys, that's when you learn. Could I have learned the behaviours from books? No, I couldn't. Could I have learned them in any other way? So experiential learning, doing it with somebody, is really critical. So if you're sitting here now and you've got people working around you and you're going, Chris just ain't cutting it. He really frustrates the hell out of me. He just doesn't get it. You know, I don't know what's going on in here, but he really doesn't get it. And you moan in work and you moan at home. Your partner goes, oh, stop talking about Chris. It's odds on that it's about this simple type of stuff. And I know, because I've been paid a lot of money over the years from president and HR people. Is anybody from HR here? Okay, I came from the profession, so take this in the right way. HR directors saying things to me, Chris, this is really complicated. He's just not getting it, and I'm really concerned, and I think you'll have to go, and, you know, we've pumped in all this investment. I meet the person, and all this stuff pours out, and we sort it relatively quickly. So there's something in here about behaviours can be fixed, but you need to know what they look like. You need to know. Oh. Hang on, I've got this upside down. I do beg your pardon. I've got the Australian version. Okay, fine. Okay. I hate a bit too busy slides, but this one's quite important. This again comes from 40 years of looking at behaviours. Robin Stuart Coetzee, my mentor, worked with thousands and thousands of managers and tried to understand what was going on. When they were with their people, what did they notice? And there were three things that he came up with. One is that every job that he looked at, there were two sets of behaviours, what he called accelerating behaviours, which are associated with leadership, making improvements in jobs, changing things. The centre is improvement. And then there were things which were called sustaining behaviours. These are more operational, more managerial, just actually doing things, tying things down, doing the actual basics of the job. And he said every job to him seems to have a unique blueprint. The balance, it's not one is better than the other. So that's the first thing he came up with. The second thing he came up with is that when he looked at all of the appraisal data and performance data in companies, he found out there was masses of it, but hardly anybody seemed to say, if you can do these 5 things, just those 5 things, that's absolutely relevant for the job, which is why I asked about behaviour specifications. And what we've been doing for a number of years with clients that we work with, and you don't need to spend lots of money on it. You don't need to, this isn't a pitch for consulting fees or whatever. You can actually do this stuff very simply. You've done the job spec, simply ask the question, if I walked into a room, what would I want to see this person doing? Visualize it. So you put the behaviour piece in there. So job specs and role specs and behaviour specifications. The other thing that he found out was that roughly on the 80-20 rule, all of us in this room tend to have a dominant 20 or so behaviours, because those are our preferences and those are the things we believe we ought to be doing. And they drive about 80% of our output. So it begs the question, are we working on the right 20 things? Over the last few years, I think it's even simpler than that. I think every job that I look at, there are probably 5 critical things that if we can do them and get them really right, that's all that we can possibly, get into our brains at any one point in time. Top performers understand that. Top performers work very hard at just the critical things. So if you as their manager can help them identify what those critical things are, you stand a really good chance of raising performance. The other thing that he found out was he identified that we all, in this room, we all spend time doing things which actually are reactions to pressure and stress and strain, and he called those blockers. The classic is 3 responses to pressure or stress: fight, flight, or submit. So fight is obvious. You roar, you fight back. Flight is avoiding responsibility. So if you've got people avoiding responsibility, that's to do with a reaction to something. It's not personality driven, this. And the other one is submit. They just roll over. I've been here for 10 years. I've tried everything. And you see people, they just literally roll over like pussycats. So blockers. Surprisingly, really good performers hit blockers early, because there's only 2 questions if you've got a blocker. If you know you're doing something that's not constructive to the job, it's just a reaction, 2 questions for yourself. 1, where's this coming from? The cause. And 2, what the hell can I do about it? High performers seem to hit it early. So, in a nutshell, what we've found out is in order to achieve high performance, you need to know what 10 out of 10 looks like, and predominantly that's all about behaviours. If you ain't doing that in your companies, it's a little bit of a hit or miss affair as to whether or not you can raise performance. The biggest determinant of behaviour is the situation. Imagine, just think about your own job. If you got a new boss today, for example, would you change your behaviour? In the room? Yes. If the market shifts, would you change the behaviour of yourself and the company? Yep. If you have a new bank, do you change your behaviour? Yep. Etc., etc. So the point I'm trying to make is that jobs aren't fixed, roles aren't fixed, performance isn't fixed. It's much more subtle than we make out. And the biggest determinant is the situation. And that explains why handling change can be so difficult in businesses, is that the behavioural effect of change is enormous for everybody in the company. So thinking that through is worthwhile. Okay. Can I take a step back and just think about your own companies and how do you encourage the very best in your employees? What types of things do you do? Question for everybody in the room. What types of things do you do to encourage best? Rewards. In monetary as well as other things?
Not always monetary because of the current climate, but yeah, other things as
Yep. Like?
Training sessions that people want
Yep.
to go on. Sitting with Nelly if they want to learn something particular.
Yep.
We haven't got the money to do it, we'll do it in-house.
Yep.
Because that's what they want to do.
Yep.
As well as, obviously, the monetary ones like PPI and things like that.
Okay. So the total, so you're looking at things in a total setting.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? What types of things?
Tell them when they've done a good job.
Yep. Great. Celebrating today. Absolutely that immediate thing. I did that interesting last night, you know, two students in the Premier Inn, you know, but I found out they were students. Brilliant attitude, absolute attitude. And when I talked to them about their attitude, it was clearly the first time that anybody had talked to them about, you know, what they were doing and the way they're doing it. Mind-blowingly simple to do, but how many times do we, I don't know, fail to deliver on that? Anybody else?
I think it's about focus, targets, goals, clarity on the job,
Yeah.
coaching, all that sort of stuff, really.
Yeah.
So it's not just once in a while, it's all the time.
It's never done. That's the tiring thing about the jobs that we do. And that's why there can't be any experts, in my view, about people, because we're continually learning. But this type of stuff. I'm going to show you two slides which aren't mine. Has anybody heard of Marcus Buckingham and the work that he's done? Marcus Buckingham was a researcher at Gallup, the big attitude survey company. And it's legendary now, the work that they did, but they must have had a sort of tea break and somebody said, hang on, if we're so smart, we've done 30 years of crunching attitude survey data, have we correlated it with business success? So if we looked at all the questions and then correlate it with our customers' return on investment, shareholder value, profitability, are there themes and trends in here? And they did just that. And they came up with 12 questions, which spookily he called Q12. And Q12, it can be used as a, if you like, an engagement tool in its simplest sense, an attitude survey. There are others which are more complex, and some of you might use these. And I just thought you might be interested in Q12. If you Google on Marcus Buckingham, you'll find this. This isn't my stuff, but I just thought it was nice and simple and really on the button. So there are 12 questions. These are the first 6. So things like asking these questions, you know, to individuals. Do I know what is expected of me at work? Do I have the materials and equipment that I need in order to do my work? At work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? Number 3 is the one that Buckingham, when he's been interviewed, has said is the most revealing question in any survey. He always looks at the answer for that question in particular. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we can all rush around and reorganise everybody's jobs to make sure that they are happy and doing everything they can. That's not the message. The message is, are we doing enough to enable the people working for us to express themselves at work and to do the things that they want to do best? Because do you know what? Volunteers work harder. Everybody in the room who's set up a business knows that. The drive to set up a business. The challenge for us is, how do we encourage other people to feel and do the same? At work, do my opinions seem to count? So how do you engage with everybody in your business? Do you give employee voice? If I have a good idea, how do I get it to the top of the pile? What processes do you have? Number 10, a good friend of mine has a huge attitude survey company. And the question that he loves asking, because he said, again, this is hugely revealing, is, would you ask your best buddy to join the company? Nice, simple stuff, isn't it? If they wouldn't, you've got to ask yourself as MD, why is that score low? Okay. Marcus Buckingham.
Would you ask the same questions relevant in all organisations? You know, some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Do I have, as an example, do I have a best friend at work?
Yeah.
I suppose there are some organisations where organisations would want that kind of culture,
Yeah.
have that kind of culture.
Yeah.
And there are other organisations which just don't have that, and therefore
You're,
it's not an important question to ask.
No. I can, and it's sector situational. You're absolutely right. The language as well is important. You're absolutely right. And I know if I take an environment that I've worked in, trading trading floor.
Who are the best?
Who cares?
Yeah.
This is, I'm here, I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm playing the devil's game, and I will, so you're absolutely right. But in the spirit of today, about how we as MD owner managers create best culture, I just thought it was very revealing in terms of the things that we should be doing. Okay, I just want to end with how do we encourage best? 4 tips. And I said before, I'm not an expert. I've got the scars on my back, but I'm just trying to pass something on. I think there are 4 things that we can do to encourage best. 1, and I'm going to be so boring on this, think behaviours. Think not just about the what of a job, but on the how. And if you're not already doing them, jot down behaviour spec. Literally, that visual thing I use a lot. I've done a job spec, and then I imagine I'm watching this person, and they're walking like this. I want to almost visualise them. What are they going to do? What does great look like? Because if I can't actually help them understand that, how can they achieve 10 out of 10? That's point 1. Point 2 is if you're trying to change performance, change behaviour, there are 3 things that everybody in the business needs, and you can't get great performance without these 3 things. Believe me. 1, the person needs to know what they're currently doing, and they're currently doing well. The second thing is they need to specifically understand the things they've got to do differently. And third, they need to understand the things they're currently doing which are hindering their performance. So if your appraisal system or your coaching system doesn't hit those 3 things now, all I'm saying is I think that's where the magic dust lies. Question 3 of Marcus Buckingham is saying, are we using the very best of the skills, experiences in our teams? So building on strengths and preferences is absolutely key, whether that's in work or outside work. I remember, do any of you remember there was an Annika Rice program, which was like an opportunities program? They would follow a group of people who had set a challenge, and they would just let them go. And I think it was on a Wednesday night. On the Thursday morning, I was with a client, and the client, we were having tea and just before we were going to have our meeting, and the client said, "Did you watch the program last night?" And I said, "Yes, I'm avid. You know, Annika is very nice, and I used to watch it for her, jumping in and out the helicopters mainly." But seriously, I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Why can't every day at work be like that?" Committed team, absolutely hammer and tongs, practically impossible targets, not doing it for cash whatsoever, all sorts of other things. And we had a really good discussion about what that actually meant in both our businesses. And I just leave that with a thought, because I think that's what Buckingham was getting to. And the last one there is encouraging responsibility and ownership, stretching people and building self-belief in people. I did a lot of work with my own team on helping them to understand themselves, understand their strengths and the weaknesses, understanding what was important to them, and then looking at ways in which we could, as a company, genuinely try to help them to do more with inside the business. I've approached this, therefore, a bit like Desert Island Discs. If I was building another company, I don't think my wife would stand it, but if I was, because the divorce papers, I think, would be absolutely there with me. Those 4 things are 4 things that I believe passionately about building into any new company. They're all apparently to do with people, but actually it's business. It's, are we maximising the use of all our people? So that's what I think is who your best people are all about. I'm not on commission from anybody to sell. On the right-hand side is, I've only given you a sort of cook's tour of who are your best people. If you want to go into more depth, the one on the right is the book that I talked about. The one on the left, has anybody seen this Moments of Truth book? It is absolutely riveting. It's old. It was based on the 60s. And the principle is, in every business in this room, there are probably 5 to 8 things that if you do them really well, the customer experience and the contract goes brilliantly. You know, it's smooth all the way through. He's developed a little technique that helps you do it. And then when you do it, then you line up behaviours to each point. So if you imagine it, process map across here, these are the steps, get those right, and then put behaviours on there. For me, it's like the Holy Grail. It's having a smooth process in the business that's totally customer responsive, that everybody in the business has got the right behaviours, which means that those moments of truth, which are the points where you touch customers and touch product and touch service, are likely to go well. So that's enough of me. Thank you for listening to stuff that I believe in, and I hope it's been helpful to you. So thank you. Are there any questions at all, or was that helpful? You know? Yes? Yeah.
Really interesting, thank you, because from where we're at as a business, this is something that we're trying to work on. But one thing I keep coming across is if people's personalities are quite closed and they're not open, it's very, very hard to engage them. Have you any advice?
Yeah. First thing, I'm glad you asked the question, because I think it's a spot-on question. First fact from research, and it's against popular belief, is that if you take the differences between these two people in performance terms, less than 20% of it is to do with personality. Fact, research-wise. Personality is your DNA. It describes who you are. But what you do is much more important. So what these guys do on a day-to-day basis is independent. It's related to personality, but it's independent. Point one. Point two is, I think the real question is, how do you get people on side? And if I knew a sodding answer... No. I think, first of all, I think this is really, really situational. And I believe that it's to do with absolutely individuals having a common cause, a common belief, a common value set. If I think about the problems that I had in my own companies in the past, I would say that choosing people who are technically good was one... There was a period when we did that, but the values didn't follow. If I had my time again, I would choose people who have the values and the behaviours, because I know I can give them the knowledge, and I know I can develop them. I think that what great managers do, and this is Buckingham, there's a great article, by the way, called What Great Managers Do, Marcus Buckingham, my hero again. And in there, he talks about that person that you're talking about. You need to get to the bottom of what's going on in there. I run a program which is called How to Handle Difficult People. If you're interested after this, I'll give you a few tips. They are tips because I think everybody's situational. Difficult people are the people that we wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, don't we? The marketing plan and the finance plan, done deal. It's that going, oh no, I've got that meeting in the morning and it's not going that well. It's that stuff that's the gut-wrenching stuff. So I've got a few tips on that. But thank you for the question.
Mine's basically very similar. I joined the company in April, and most of the staff have actually been there over 20 years.
Thanks.
Most of the staff have actually been there over 20 years, and I've come in as new HR, payroll and accounts, and I've been given the job of staff motivation. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is once a month I'm getting just the office staff and management together, and we're doing different things like bowling, team building things. And the problem that I'm having is the stick in the mud office ladies that have been there a long time have the attitude whereby I spend enough time with them at work, I'm not spending social time with them. And no matter what I try and do, I ask them their opinions on do we want to go somewhere to eat or anything like that. Because I'm new and I've not got in that mundane state of mind, which I don't want to do if I can, but I do think it rubs off on you, definitely. How can I motivate these people to come on board and see that we are all actually different out of work.
Yeah, right. Step back. What you're talking about to me is if you take any company in this room, it's almost like a rugby ball, 100% people. Top 20% of people tend to be very open, honest, up for it, whatever it is. Bottom 20% need to be, sometimes you need to push them through. That's where we tend to have our problems. And we tend to put a lot more effort into the bottom 20%, so we don't help the people in the middle bit, which is where the 60% is, who are actually open to reason and up for it. So my strategy in your case would be work with those people who are the change makers. Identify those people that you can work with, what I call your disciples. Spend time with them. Celebrate their successes. It becomes very obvious to other people around that actually that's what's going on. And then they start to follow. Not everybody will, but the more you do that, the more you set the tone and standard for your business. And some people will vote with their feet as a result of doing that. The big thing is you keep the best. Because not everybody is for turning. Was it a Thatcherist? No, it was the wrong thing. But not everybody's for turning. You can't spend your whole life working, trying to turn everybody. So I would work with the disciples, the people that really are going to be the future of your company. Set the standards with them. The other thought is moments of truth. I've used the moments of truth process in 2 companies just recently. What's beautiful about moments of truth is that you get groups across the company. How many people in your business, for example? 40, lovely. Yeah, 50 people, which I just worked with. And spookily, there were 5 core processes. And what we did was we split teams up deliberately so that people in process step 1, some of them would know nothing about process step 1, but the whole driver for change very often was over here, and they didn't speak to those people very often. So we deliberately mixed people up, 5 teams of 10, took them away for a couple of days, and the mission was, what is it about that step in this company has got to go really well? I want you to describe it to me. So we did all the factual steps, the what, and then we kicked it in and we said, okay, so what does it look like in behaviour terms? Because they described it, they supported it because it's theirs. And it's built on the principle that those people closest to the customer, those people closest to the product and service know actually what's right. That starts to break down things. So focus on the business takes away and depersonalises it, and then people vote with their feet. It's a bit rushed, that answer, but do you know what I mean? It sort of takes it away. This takes time, you know. This takes time.
I find it difficult because I'm the new person.
Yeah.
And I obviously get on better with the directors because I'm new and fresh. The lady that I took over from retired, but I'm finding it difficult that the other staff see me as a threat more than a help.
But I'm a great backyard person myself, and when things get complicated, I go, what can I do? And what I can do, what you can do, is to get that cadre of people around you. Be yourself, be authentic, drive change through those people. And, you know, the flag will start to fly. And then the people in that middle bit, when people see the flag flying, they know which way the wind's going. And they'll start to get behind you more and more. And then, of course, some people, there might be a few, what I call behind the bicycle shed discussions. That's all part of being adult and being in business. Any more questions from anybody?
I've just got one comment, really, more than anything. What we're talking about here is who are your best people. We have 2 separate who is your best people. We have the management side of things where we want to progress them and move them up in appraisal. Then we've got a very flat structure at the bottom where we don't want the people to go forward, and the people who do the job consistently on a day-to-day basis, who do 9 to 5, the plodders, they're our best people at that level. So we have two different levels of people really who we focus on.
Yeah.
Because then people at the bottom who are like probably 90% of our business are our best people. They're the ones who keep us our contracts. If
Wow.
they don't behave consistently on a day-to-day basis, we will lose contracts because of that.
Absolutely. I'm really glad that you asked this question, because I'd hate the message from here is that best is somehow to link to people who are going to president. You know, I want to become the president. Or there's different routes for different people. I'm with you. I mean, I think those people who are delivering day in, day out, I would be looking, you might already do this, at award systems to reward merit. I'd be looking at things things like black belt, green belt. There'll be some people in that soldier group who are centres of competence for doing X. Build them and say, we want you to run training sessions on X. Have other people, in other words, leverage the talent that you've got in a merit base, and you could actually give awards for that and pay a little bit for that because it's definable, measurable, and objective.
The way we actually do it is we give pips, because it's a security officer business.
Oh, right, okay.
We give pips. When we get new sites we have prime sites, we have low sites, the people who get the most pips go on the more prime sites.
Yes.
It's the only way we can do the
Yep.
reward with the,
Yep.
again in this economic climate,
Yep.
because they don't get paid great monies. So there is the reward system there.
Yep.
But we, out of like 90 odd people, we only want a handful of 5 people wanting to go better, wanting to go further because of the flat structure.
No, I'm with you. And therefore, the behaviours of your managers with that group are critical.
Yeah.
That's the lifeblood of your company. So your managers need to be trained and developed in how to be great coaches. Yeah. And the Marcus Buckingham 12 questions, those are the ones that I'll be using. That was a bit quick, but it was a powerful. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating and making it pleasurable. Thank you.